Is rope? I don't know. I saw a circle there for a second.
Okay, so this is the Making Sense of Technology and Cryptocurrency such as Bitcoin presentation. This is a work in progress live streaming event as well. So I'm not going to try to do this as a live streaming as much as do what we normally do here. So there's a big interest in this, and you probably know all about some of these things, but I put them up here because this is the stuff you'll find when you go to research this. You know it's in the news, you start hearing these words about miners and bitcoins and cryptocurrencies, and it's in the news every day, it's in the financial news, so you can't avoid it. And you've probably heard reports of 14-year-olds who are now millionaires overnight. It's a question whether they really are or not, but we'll see with that. And I have friends doing some of this stuff. They only spend a couple $100s to learn things, and they've lost 50 of it already. There are people just doing things, and so there's losing money involved here. There are venture capital people. I don't know if you know these people, but I've seen some names out there, and they have their presentations on why they think it's a good thing for the future. Some of our Silicon Valley moguls have big investments in not only the software behind this and the technology, but also making money off of it. And you're going to find out what states they're in. There's certain states it's good for doing some of this stuff in. It's very interesting. McAfee, you might know, he's the fellow that created the McAfee antivirus software, still does. Peter Thiel, PayPal, some other projects like that. So they're putting their fortunes into this in some way or another. Not necessarily gambling, they're doing a lot of projects. And you might have heard that Bitcoin just gets you off the grid financially. Nobody knows what you're doing. Of course, if you have cash, nobody knows what you're doing either, so it's not quite too different there. It is involved with the governments. The governments are all concerned about it, are starting to watch it, so there's all this discussion going on. Probably your reason is you keep hearing the word Bitcoin. So that seems to be, since 2008 on forward, Bitcoin has been associated with the bigger picture, which is cryptocurrency. Bitcoin is just a popular one, the first one, and still the popular one. All right. So maybe while I'm talking, you might hear some things in here that says, this is nothing here for me. But the other hand, these are some of the things I saw. So I can see customers and businesses starting to use it for transactions already. So if you run a business, you may find that you have an ability to attract more customers in who may want to buy with Bitcoin. Okay, so it might be something for web owners. I run courses online at teachable.com. That's the platform. And then there's a forums group for all us entrepreneurial teachers in Facebook. And it comes up every once in a while. Somebody from Australia is a teacher, and they'll say, when are you going to start allowing us to accept Bitcoins? And I have no clue what they're talking about, but apparently they'll be able to buy courses through, they do all the e-commerce for us, through Bitcoin at some point. So the owners, the people that are running that venture project say, oh, we're working on it. So they're planning for it. So we'll talk more about who actually accepts it. There's all kinds of projects being built under the underlying technology, which is called blockchain. Let's see how far we can get into explaining what blockchain is. But it's a word you're going to keep hearing because it's the same word that you heard in the late 80s, 90s, and that word was internet. And back then, it was the same kind of thing, internet. How do I use that in a sentence? What does it mean? And now you know what it is. So we're all thinking that this blockchain is going to be the technology that's going to change a lot of stuff. So we'll learn a little bit about that. You might actually do something called mining coins for profit. You're actually like a mint. And you do work, you spend money, and you hopefully get rewarded for it. You actually add and create currency, just like the Philadelphia Mint creates currency, somewhat analogous, close enough for this point in the presentation. The people who mine coins need hardware. So you might be in the business of making and selling that hardware. Or even teaching you how to install Ubuntu is one of the software programs that's used in mining. And you might be publishing blogs, courses, websites, getting advertising for the last bullet suppliers on your website. So there's opportunities in this already. The opportunities you might think they are are bigger than what's being reported. We'll see that financial side of it. Anyway, digital currency, anybody remember the ones on the bottom? You've been around too long, you have. These were back in the 1990s. We used to call it e-money. And it's a little like the token you get over at Kohl's or at Sears or United Airlines. They give you all these little tokens, and you build them up, and then you can exchange them only in areas they let you exchange in. So that's what they were in the back. I always looked at them as being failures. They all did fail. So we used to have something called e-money. But digital currency, you know what it is. It's basically moving money around through the digital devices and internet, but it's the same money that you would move around on a telephone call or showing up at the cash register. There's nothing more involved in that. They're very similar. However, the ones down the bottom, they were actually not the actual currency, but in those cases, a specific company controlled the particular type of currency. And they're just three from the past. I mean, there was about several dozen of them, and they all have their epitaphs in them. All right, so this is something that's really common, but it seemed to have to go into the slide deck. What is digital currency? It's a bigger item than cryptocurrency. So some of these will become a little bit more clear as we go, but there's always a list of bullets of what it is. So particularly it uses that underlying technology called blockchain. So you keep hearing the word blockchain over and over. That's the invention. And Bitcoin was the first one to take advantage of the underlying concept of blockchain technology. I'll give you a little preview, but some people are going to do it much better with some videos I picked out to watch. It's a ledger. And everybody can have a copy of it. And every record of every transaction is on that ledger, but encrypted. So there's no specific company that controls it. There's no central entities, there's no bank, there's no trusted third parties, there's nobody involved with the cryptocurrencies that are built on blockchain technology. The cryptocurrencies could be a little bigger than that. I don't think it is. Right now I think it's all tied into the blockchain technology is being used to create the currency that you might hear of. And Bitcoin's only one. There's no central server, there's no iCloud, there's no clouds, there's nothing. Everybody has a copy. If we were all doing Bitcoins in here and buying and selling them, everybody would have a copy of the entire Bitcoin ledger on your computer. Everybody in the room. Yes, sir.
Wouldn't that get pretty huge after a while?
It only has a very small pieces of information on it. It's limited to, these are some of the technical hurdles. Keep in mind, this is still small stuff, it's still infancy. So they don't know all the problems yet. But the problems that it solves is big. So the same thing with the internet. They didn't know all the problems they're going to run in with it. Remember, email addresses, well, it's not really internet protocol, but it's one of the things on the internet with email and the Microsoft Word virus. Anybody remember that one? They just didn't know all the crap that was going to be ending up on the internet that they had to fix later. So I would say blockchain technology is in that same step. There's still some stuff coming that they don't know about. But it solves the big problem it solves is to be able to create a record, a ledger, that the transactions can't be duplicated. Once a transaction is written, it's done, can never duplicate it again. That's a particular technical problem that was solved and gets rid of a central source. There's no central source. But it's a good thinking. You think, because you're going to have a lot of questions of how could this thing work? And Peter Schiff, anybody know Peter Schiff? Peter Schiff, I think is how you say his name. He's the financial guy that's always talking about the bubbles. I call him Bubble Man, but I mean personally. So he'll be on CNBC, all those talk shows, and talking about the bubble. You know, every president's have a bubble, the Obama bubble, the Trump bubble. I mean, he's always talking about disasters. But he's a financial guy, and he will be on the side that this is going to be a disaster. There's people on both sides. No central server, all transactions. I want to do a transaction with Dennis. I get on my computer, he gets on his computer. I send him, we make a transaction, it goes over to his computer, he gets my coins. And then at some point in time, Tom does some specific work along with Maureen and some other people, and they solve some cryptographic problems, and an entry is put in the ledger, job done. The only trouble is you can only spend the Bitcoins. You're going to have to convert it to a currency maybe, but you can spend them. But anyway, the point is, it's just between me and him. The people that actually solve the problem to get it on the ledger have nothing to do with our transaction nor need to know it. Yes, sir.
Well, I suppose I want to send you some money in the form of Bitcoin. Where do I begin?
That will get to this slide.
Okay, so
Yeah, it's simply you're going to have a wallet software program installed on your computer, and you have to pick a currency and you go from there.
Okay.
But it's still evolving. Good question. Transactions ledgers are encrypted using cryptography, so nobody knows who you are. You're actually represented by a number, and you can reveal who you are, but basically nobody necessarily has to know who you are. So all the trust in cryptocurrency is based on the math of cryptography. Actually, I haven't said that word enough to be able to pronounce it. Cryptography, or solving the crypto problems that have to do with it. So in other words, you trust the system because it's unbreakable. I have a really fun video to show how hard it is to break it. I hope we have some time to show it. And by the way, you use cryptography. I haven't used that word enough to say it.
Cryptography.
Cryptography, when you see the little lock in your web browser. Same thing. It's always happening, but this happens to do with storing the transaction between me and Dennis and making sure that it can't be broken. So we have some terminologies to go on. There's many cryptocurrencies. They're sometimes called altcoins. 2009, Bitcoin was the first and is still the most popular. There are some 1,400. These are some places you can go to look at them. Let's see how well this works. It's the first time I used Keynote Live, so. And some of these websites will actually check your web browser to see whether there are a lot that can actually use it. So we'll see what. I tried them all on a Mac.
That's a lot.
So this is one of these exchanges that has them all listed. So I think, I don't know, what is it, Wednesday or Thursday, they were all down like 30%. Oh, it's just all red blood on here. Anyway, they convert them over to a physical currency so you can see them, but you can see they're trading even today. And not trading so much is there's transactions going on that are changing the values, which are really complicated to figure out how they're changing. But there they are. Look at the list. By the way, Bitcoin's a popular one. Ethereum is a one that a lot of people have a lot of faith is going to happen. Bitcoin Cash was a split off from Bitcoin. We'll understand what that is a little bit, but there's a lot of disagreement when somebody creates one. So in other words, we could all sit down here and decide we want to create our own cryptocurrency. No problem. We just have to learn all the software technology, write some software, start getting people interested in it, get it listed up here, and get the first transaction on the ledger, and hopefully people will love it. Hopefully it's not just a Bitcoin because it's too plain. So these are all cryptocurrencies. Some of them are real low. The thing with a cryptocurrency, based on generally the math, there's only 21 million, for example, in Bitcoin. So once all 21 million become available, no more will be created. So that's part of the reason they expect the value to go up, because of shortages. But this is investing. Remember in the opportunities in the beginning? This is called investing. Investing is acquiring as many Bitcoins at the lowest price you can, holding out to someday you'll be able to convert them. Either they'll become valuable on their own to use, like buy that yacht we were going to plan on, and the yacht company will take our Bitcoins. Or we'll have to somehow convert it to some currency where the yacht company will accept it. See, so that's the other problem. You might have to get it sold out of the system, and that's part of the issue. So there's a lot of people holding these in different places for different reasons. So this is finance, one of the opportunities out there. All right, let's go back to that show. So it's back to Keynote. How about that? Let's see if that works.
50-50.
And we could go to CoinMarketCap, just another example. There's probably more than those two. Two I put up there. And so it's the same thing as a listing. And you can click on each one of the cryptocurrencies, and it brings you up another screen, gives you more information. It tells you what their plan is, why they're trying to do it, what their goals are, why theirs is different than the other one. And you can go through all of them one by one. Huge, all of a sudden, and it just shocked me when I saw there was that many out there, over 1,500 on that one exchange. And if you listen to people like Peter Thiel or McAfee, they'll tell you, oh, that particular one, I'm investing in that one. We're going to be putting some into it because it's low. We like the company and we like the protocol. And you'll see they have these endless discussions about it. So the first one was in 2009, and they call it decentralized currency, cryptocurrency. Is exchanged via the internet. There's no physical equivalent. You do not actually even hold them in your computer. However, their software will show you how many Bitcoins you have, but the blockchain has to be queried to find out how many Bitcoins you actually changed. It actually goes back and has a record keeping to know what you actually own. Anytime we lose how many Bitcoins you have on your computer, suppose your computer happens to fall into a bucket of muriatic acid. Just so. You were trying to clean the hard drive and oops, the laptop kind of fell in. Right, so what happens is the whole thing fries and you now lost your wallet and you no longer can get in. Now hopefully you have your key to get back in. You buy another computer, you set it all up, it goes out, downloads the blockchain, which is the ledger for the currency, and up comes your number. It's always in the blockchain. Now, anybody can see that number, but they don't know who owns it. They just see an ID, so to speak. All right, so there's no physical equivalent. You can't carry them around like our cave person up there trying to create a Bitcoin. It doesn't exist physically. There is actually a paper kind of version of it, but not really a coin. Coins are made by people, so everybody, this is what we call the miners basically, and I call them businesses or farms. This is going to be really impressive. I can pull it off on the right video. We have Satoshi Nakamoto is the person that wrote the white paper solving the problem of being able to have two originals. So you know in a digital area, if you create a picture, you go in Photoshop, you design it, and save it on a file. We can actually know which one is the original one using blockchain technology. Whereas you know that you can copy that and there'll be a million copies. So that basically he solved the problem of not being able to have me give Dennis one Bitcoin. I think it's worth, what, $11,000 right now. Give Dennis one Bitcoin. We give out fractions. It would give you 0.002 Bitcoin. And then turn around and give the same Bitcoins to when there's no central authority. And then turn around and give you the same Bitcoins and there's no central. Who's checking? Well, the miners in the blockchain have to solve the transaction I'm going to give to John, and they're going to find out I'm using the same stuff. And they're going to add it. Never get added to the thing. Now, how that does technically, a little bit deep for this group, but we'll touch on it. Here's a little video that might give you a clue. Oops, I hit the wrong video. Now we'll do video too. What the heck? Let's not do that. Let's do it in the order I put them in.
Okay.
Come on, you. It's an old iPad. Oh, there you go. I got rid of the wrong one. Keynote, iCloud, Keynote, iCloud, iPad, iCloud, Keynote, iCloud. Okay, I know I don't have that font on here. I'm learning by doing. Nobody in the room cares either. I stuck these little links into the presentation so that I wouldn't have to. It's just resyncing, okay. Don't do that again.
It's waiting for payment.
Experimenting, this is the way I like to do it. It's just all tied together, but my fingers are too fat. Okay, so we have some ads in these, so I have to wait to get rid of them.
In divisive times, don't settle for black and white.
And that's only 1 second ad, good. So we'll do these on and off, because I'm not the expert. Some people just do a much better job than me. Alright, let me go into this large view.
Bitcoin is a digital currency which aims to do away with all the problems we have paying for things online. You may think that the system we have is pretty good. But everything we buy today has to go through a bank or credit card company who take a cut of the transaction and who rely on our trust that they'll do everything right. After a while, those payments start to build up. And added to that is security. You have to trust your card company to keep your details safe. Many people have tried to work out how to have a payment system without that middleman. But then there's another problem. How do you prove that you've paid for something? Or even that you have that money at all, without someone vouching for you? It's so serious it has a name, the double spending problem. Then, in 2008, a solution was offered by an anonymous programmer going by the name of Satoshi Nakamoto. Nakamoto left a paper on a popular cryptography blog which proposed a system of currency that solved all of these fiddly problems. His proposal was that instead of a bank or credit card company recording every transaction in one central ledger, all of the users would record all of the transactions at the same time. As a result, any attempt to fool the community would be noticed and the payment rejected. No one user, government, or bank can force a fee on a payment or control its flow. The result is a cheaper, quicker, and easier way to spend money, even across national borders. So this is Bitcoin, and it's already starting to have an impact on people's lives. Within months of the proposal, it was being used to buy and sell goods, although not always from the most scrupulous of traders. But it's not all shady businesses. Some shopping sites take it. You can buy pints in London and even pay for your university tuition. As you might have heard, there are problems. While some are profiting from getting involved early, others are losing out from this volatile and young market. And people are founding companies to buy up lots of bitcoins. But as it's designed to have a limited amount ever in circulation, that might cause problems down the road. There's so much uncertainty around Bitcoin. Some people genuinely think this is the future. Others are terrified it could destroy our economy. But many from both sides agree that if we could get Bitcoin to work, or something like it, if we can trust a digital currency to work without the middlemen, then the way the world economy functions could be transformed for the better.
We all know that Stephen Hawking has worked on some of the biggest questions about our cosmos. But what are those
We don't
ideas?
need to know that. No, we'll shut up. Okay, so this 1 minute and 36-second one I think was worthwhile to add to have two to describe the same thing.
What is Bitcoin?
It's just two different
Bitcoin is the
views.
first decentralized digital currency. Bitcoins are digital coins you can send through the internet. Compared to other alternatives, Bitcoins have a number of advantages. Bitcoins are transferred directly from person to person via the net, without going through a bank or clearinghouse. This means that the fees are much lower. You can use them in every country. Your account cannot be frozen, and there are no prerequisites or arbitrary limits. Let's look at how it works. Several currency exchanges exist where you can buy and sell Bitcoins for dollars, euros, and more. Your Bitcoins are kept in your digital wallet on your computer or mobile device. Sending Bitcoins is as simple as sending an email, and you can purchase anything with Bitcoin. The Bitcoin network is secured by individuals called miners. Miners are rewarded newly generated Bitcoins for verifying transactions. After transactions are verified, they are recorded in a transparent public ledger. Bitcoin opens up a whole new platform for innovation. The software is completely open source and anyone can review the code. Bitcoin is changing finance the same way the web changed publishing. When everyone has access to a global market, great ideas flourish. Bitcoins are a great way for businesses to minimize transaction fees. It doesn't cost anything to start accepting them, and it's easy to set up. There are no chargebacks, and you'll get additional business from the Bitcoin economy. For more information about Bitcoin, visit weusecoins.com.
You notice how each one of the websites has some word coin in it, you know, because it's obviously a video to track you into the website. John, did you see the kind of the beta for the ledger there real briefly, even though it was an animation? So it's blockchain, so it's a block full of transactions. It's really keeping track of how we can identify him, how you identify me, and how many bitcoins were involved, and actually the previous transaction because it's a chain. And him and I, our transactions in a block, and then the block is tied to the previous block. That's how it kind of knows that all these blocks belong, and that's what the miners are doing, putting all that cryptography that ties everything together into place. They get rewarded in a way, but it gives you a real quick overview of those two. And it doesn't have to be Bitcoin. That was June 9, 2014. Back then, Bitcoin, cryptocurrency, and everything was Bitcoin. It's no longer that. Bitcoin is just one, and what they were talking about applies to all the blockchain technology coinage that's being built. So when you get back into those years, you're actually talking about that. And you've seen this on the video, so I don't need to get into the details of it again. I just created a slide, and then I found some better videos to do it. And this is on the financial opportunity. And so you can see the bottom, even the real graphic image that was on the website had the bottom cut off. But it's November over here of last year and then December. And then this is the conversion price back to US dollars. Notice the previous slide said there are exchanges out there. So there are exchanges where you can take the money in your wallet or your Bitcoins and try to transfer them in so somebody will actually buy them. There you might run into transfer fees and also possibly the IRS. And you're really careful when you get into that area. There's some changes in the current tax law that have something to do with Bitcoins. Again, too detailed for us, but the main point is government is thinking about it. You know, how can we, if you go from Bitcoin currency A to Bitcoin currency B and then take it out in between after that, what's the profit and what do we tax? You know, the questions are.
But is it unitized? Like, could you buy a tenth of a Bitcoin?
Yeah, when you make it, when he sells his something to me, he's going to advertise the price, and yeah, the fractions are pretty small. There's a name for it. It's a Satomi, I think. It's a part of the guy's name contracted together. The smallest amount is some fraction, but it's not near zero, but it's very close to zero. It may be on one of these slides. Like I said, there's a lot of information.
Yeah, right.
And as I put it together, what happened is some of it just drifts out of your head later on. I remember seeing that. Did I put it up here? But anyway, these are just companies that you can actually go to. Actually, Microsoft pulled out for a few weeks and then came back in. So you can go buy stuff from Microsoft using Bitcoins if you can go get them from things. Bitcoin as fever hits the U.S. real estate market. That's an article. I'm not, well, we can go there real briefly, but I'm not going to read it out loud. Okay, so we got, still not able to use this keynote properly. This is like last week or the week before this article. So one of the things is trying to get current information, because you read anything back 3 to 4 months, it can be completely out of wrong perspective. Let's see if there's anything in here. Miami. So, the real estate market, Florida offering foreign investors a way to dodge the currency controls at home and economic sanctions. Interesting. Sorry, this iPad, it will refresh itself until all the ads download. They're coming very slowly through. All right, so anyway, something to read. It's just the point is there's nothing actually being excluded in trying to apply the actual Bitcoin currency. And black, okay, it's just the way it's slow and working. And there's a link down there. I mean, we don't need to see all these. The point is but you can even create gift cards at these places in Bitcoins. Try that for Christmas next year. I got you this present here. It's what, 0.07731 Bitcoins. Well, that's a lot of money if it's currently 11,000. These are just some exchanges you can go to. They're just the names of them, 3 that I picked out. They'll all be hot links when you get a copy of this as a PDF. And put it up so you can get it, but right now it's not up yet. Binance, I think that's Binance, maybe it's Binance. And it's slow because it's loading lots of data about currency. So it's just information about exchange rates, and I'm not an expert on these. There's actually videos and tutorials on some of these exchange sites, how to use them, what the menu choices mean. But this is just what we call an exchange, where you can convert your money between different coinages and between real physical currency. It's probably not going to let me scroll up because it's still loading stuff, but you can sort of see down at the bottom where you can put the information in to see exactly what you want to do. Of course, you have to log in, and you probably have to put some information in, but you can do buy and sell. I guess BNB must be one of the Bitcoin's balances. All right, anyway, that's just to give you an idea. There are exchanges. You thought there was just a New York Stock Exchange and NASDAQ. See, the world's changing quickly. Whole term. So, Jack, you need a wallet. A wallet will have what they call a private and a public key. You will generate the private key by hitting some buttons on some software, either in the wallet, or you can go to websites and generate a private key. It's an encrypted series of characters in different formats, and you have to put that in. That will represent your transactions, represent you. You don't give that to anybody, because anybody has your private key is you. So you are the private key, and you sort of keep that. If you lose the private key, you can never get your money back. For the particular Bitcoin, or for the particular wallet you create. I mean, you can have many views. So you don't just have to have one private key for Bitcoin package, but I don't know how the wallets work. They may limit you to one per coin each, but you can sort of open up another computer, create a wallet, create another private key, so you can be many people or many representations in there, because as far as the blockchain is concerned, it's only concerned about the owner of the coinage.
So every Bitcoin can have a wallet.
Right, so you use that in your wallet to create what we call public key, and there's a little video somewhere in here that will show you how this works in general. It doesn't have to apply just to blockchain technology, but basically the public key is what it's going to encrypt the amount of money. So if you're sending 0.0005 Bitcoins, it's going to encrypt that information along with your private key and send it along with the public key to the other person, who then in turn uses their public key, private key, to send a message back. So there's this whole back and forth. So no one's private key gets sent, but it is embedded inside the transaction, but it's no one can get it out without expending a huge amount of resources from the universe that we know. It includes all galaxies and suns. So the point is he'll have my private key encrypted in the package I send him, and he'll be also my public key, and he sees that I got it, then he can send back his return message saying he's got it, and the same thing works in both directions. Yeah.
So if you wanted to exchange that for dollars, for example, you take that private key to the bank?
No, you have in your wallet. Yeah, I think this, again, I don't do it. I did give you that from the beginning. But, to anybody that will convert it, those are exchanges. There's services out there. So, yeah, I have a couple videos on here. The one that I'd like you to see is really kind of long. It's like 35 minutes. We don't have time for it. Where the guy goes through the whole wallet process and shows you what you need to do to set it up. He gets down into the nitty-gritty of the software packages. But yes, the way I understand it, just extrapolating, if I was going to give you dollars, I need to look at the blockchain to make sure that when you send the money to my exchange software, it's going to be just like I sent the money to somebody else who has Bitcoins. So when you send that to me, it's going to be your private key, the amount of Bitcoins you want, and encrypted with the public key. And then I'm going to receive that, and I'm going to go open up the blockchain in my back office, and I'm going to apply that information to see if you own those coins. Then I'm going to put a transaction on the Bitcoin ledger, to which the miners will process an add, and then it will disappear from your account. And then you've got to hope I'm going to send you dollars. Better hope. Because after that, it's a third party.
Does that
Well, maybe not. They would know that I received it over here, but still, there's no guarantee of the actual item that you're sharing will get done. It only guarantees the transaction.
Does that ledger entry have your name on it too, or not? Or?
No, there's no information like that. Don't share your private key with anybody. Print it and keep it in a secure place. If you ever do this, this is the advice I heard. Because again, if you lose the private key, any coinage that's associated with a private key can never be recovered. You can't call the IRS, you can't call the FBI, you can't call the bank, there's no bank, you can't call everybody who's on the block, everybody who has a copy of the blockchain, and yell at them. There's just no way you're going to get it back because that private key represents some value in the number of coins or partial coins in that ledger. And you can enter it into any wallet that you want. And you can try to run 2 transactions off the same amount, but the blockchain will only let you one go through. Then you have to look at the technology and why that happens, but it works. I mean, apparently it works, so we'll prevent that. And there's nobody checking that. In other words, there's nobody sitting by and saying, John Kapoor is trying to use his 2 wallets and get some money in. There's no one person that does that. It's just people participating in what we call mining for various reasons, and their job is to get the transactions that are being requested to be put on a blockchain, which is just like sending a message to the internet. They're all receiving it in their little software that does this job. And they're saying, okay, I'm trying to get this transaction on. They have the public key. They have all the information encrypted. They have the encrypted version of your information. They don't see your private key. And they do some other things to get this transaction on. The first one that does the right amount of work gets a little reward, and then it goes on to the ledger. Now the second one comes on with the same information in it. And when these workers go to work, someone's going to find, oh, that's already on there. So it gets rejected and it gets broadcast to everybody who's doing the job. There's no red flags that come up. There's nobody's going to knock on your door and say, you know, do you have my iPhone? Nobody's going to knock on the door and say, where you saw you tried to do it twice, because it could be an honest mistake. You could get your iPad, it got jammed, and then you went over to your laptop, and you know, it could be an honest mistake. Nobody's monitoring anything on here at all. Nobody cares. And then you have all these different versions of it. It's 18 minutes. I'll leave it if you want. You know, it's 18 minutes to go through all the wallet. The guy goes. He's very slow, but he's pretty thorough, and I think that's a good video on there. It's going to change every day, and there's different wallets. Wallets software. It's all this software. It's already got all the technology in it to meet the protocol. You know, the internet is a protocol, right? It's a series of rules by which data can be sent and received, and then people write web browsers and websites, all based on that protocol. That's why it works. Routers use the protocol, everybody's using the protocol. But blockchain technology is the white paper that was written and the solution to it. And you can also have printing. That is actually your paper version of all. So you can have a paper version if you want. And there's a website that will do that all for you. And each one of these, I have a guide that you can go read. And based on time, if we stop at each one of these and read them, they're an army in themselves. But I could see somebody doing a presentation in the future using here's how we make a paper wallet and doing a demo, or here's how we use a certain wallet, and they can come to here and do a short presentation and show us how to do it, and also display the private key. All right, so before we get on to this next thing, maybe some questions at this point. So that's basically what it is. It's a ledger recording transactions of something called coins, bitcoins, between people. The coins are created by the people working on there. There's already a mathematical limit on Bitcoin of the Bitcoin technology, 21 million Bitcoins. They have an intrinsic value of 0. They're not created from day one. Day one, there's only the first Bitcoin was born. I think it was 11. It was a transaction for a slice of pizza. And of course, last November, it was that one Bitcoin was worth 11,000. So that original transaction, someone paid somebody for one slice of pizza with some whole Bitcoin to get the first transaction on the ledger, to get it, kickstart, called boot. And they said, okay, here's your, on the other side of that, here's your piece. I don't know if that's exactly what happened. And it went from one wallet to the other. Didn't get the thing kicked off. The market value of that Bitcoin back there If you went to somebody who would exchange it, I don't know, you'd have to do some research, but it might have been the exact value of an eaten piece of pizza. I mean, I don't know. So I don't know what the value was, but obviously the Bitcoin was 1 Bitcoin. The dollar value may be still 0 or even 10 cents. Yes, sir.
What happens to the people who lose their number and can't get their Bitcoin? I mean, where is the limbo for these Bitcoins? Are they just out of existence?
At this point, yes. And so this is not one of those problems that they wonder if they've solved. Now, the real cryptocurrency enthusiasts, gurus, evangelists, they eat, sleep, and drink this stuff, say, that's not a problem, that's your problem. We're not going to stop doing this because you can lose all your Bitcoins. We're moving, we're plowing forward, we don't care. Don't lose your private key. So that means make sure you have a copy of it, yes. For each.
Yeah, but doesn't that affect the overall limit of the 21 million Bitcoins that could possibly be out there?
That's another problem.
There's so much garbage Bitcoins that nobody could ever get.
Right, we don't know who has them. For all we know is McAfee has 75% of them right now. Oh, yeah, we don't know who has Bitcoins. But we do know that there are places busily mining them. Wait till you see what mining is about. Mining them. For what reasons do they mine them? One of them is to accumulate them because mining is work. It costs something to mine. And then they get rewarded with a new Bitcoin or partial Bitcoins being added. Just like the Federal Reserve kind of prints them. So they get like a partial Bitcoin for doing the actual work of validating the transactions. So they're doing real work. And they're getting paid by expending that 21 million, was it, Bitcoins down until they get to the end. And they're getting fractions. They get these little tiny fractions for solving a problem. It's very interesting when we get to that. I don't know if I got, that's the answer to your question. You lose the private key, it's either off the wall, 1929, or just make sure you're careful if you're going to be putting in like a $300,000 worth of Bitcoins to buy a house, and then forget somehow lose that private key or the software that contains it. So they all tell you to print
a big limbo out there. Then.
Yeah, there are people. Oh, yeah, there are people out there. Yeah. There's also a story where there's a whole bunch of Bitcoins are lost. There's some glitch in the software yet. That's a whole other story. It is the wild, wild west of a new technology being applied to currency. What was the technology again? Blockchain technology, software technology to create these open ledgers that everybody can distribute. What they represent, in the case of Bitcoin, is a transaction of whatever we want to call Bitcoin, a unit of measurement between me and another person. That unit of measurement could be sand on the beach. We're going to call it a unit of measurement, it has no real intrinsic value. In fact, sand might be more worthwhile. Yes, sir.
There was a recent article someplace, I glanced at it, where some countries, I think East Asia especially, want to set up Bitcoins and probably use their state bank or their favorite bank. And I remember reading one comment, the criticism of it said, well, that does away with everything because they know everything and they can tax it and follow you around.
Well, that's the thing is, it's no longer a blockchain technology. Some will argue. I think we have an ad here, and it's still a pending ad. I can't stop it.
The internet is cool, but it's also completely broken. Mass data breeding.
Comment. So government, we have governments banning it, governments telling their citizens and actually fining and jailing their citizens if they try to use it. They come up typically with the argument, we don't want you to lose your money because there's nothing we can do about it, so therefore it's illegal for you to do it. And if you do it, then we'll put you in jail. It's kind of the logic of some of those. We have the issue of taxing it, the issue of the currency could be replaced. The millennials particularly, I'm not picking any group, but the millennials particularly have a lot of doubts about currency, US dollar, the whole international currency thing. So in the technology area, the ones that are into this type of technology, They see this as the panacea for what the problems of currency are. However, it has the other problems that you're referring to. So you're seeing a holy grail there, and we don't know that there's actually this invisible edge that we have to walk across. Ever see that Indiana Jones movie? They get to the grail, the people would walk over and they would fall onto the crevasse, and you kind of had to. All right. Anyway, but the point is that the very good one, Dennis, is the government is perplexed at this point. Can they ban it? And could they actually stop it? In other words, if I download a blockchain on my computer for currency, you download blockchain on your computer, I download the wallet software and the software that allows me to create a transaction, it just goes over the internet between you and me, and we exchange that transaction. The government would have to actually monitor our computers to see whether we're using that software and actually the packets, which they probably are doing already, but then we're going to have to be open about it.
So right now, the people making profit would be the miners?
Well, it's like stock. If you have stock and it's worth, let's say, 100 shares is worth $10,000, until you cash it in, it's only worth, the stock is only worth whatever you can sell it for. Now, the thing that differs with Bitcoin is that people will take the Bitcoins for other things. So you could do the same thing with the stock. You could have 100 shares of stock, right? And I could say, Peter, here's 100 shares of stock. Well, there's no way I can give it to him because it's controlled somehow. And then he could give me maybe his new car. Here's the stock, and give me the car. It's kind of like a barter going on. But you can see there's all kinds of transactional issues. There's licensing. By the way, they think blockchain will get rid of the licensing problem. In other words, we want to go to the licensing bureau to sell that car. There's all this other interesting stuff. So in other words, it would be instantaneous to know who owns what that car is, who owns the actual stock, without having to go to an exchange to find out. This is all coming. These are all what they call the disruptor aspects to it. But the point is that it has no value until I can find somebody that wants to exchange something for it, or I can go to the New York Stock Exchange and sell the stock or other exchanges. The thing with the Bitcoin is some people will actually take it for something else. So, I mean, I could say, here, Peter, here's $55,000 for your slightly used Lexus with a dent in the back. And Peter says, okay, here it is. I got to get the title changed and all the other stuff. But you make sure you send me the Bitcoins, and you're sending me 3 Bitcoins or 4 Bitcoins. And he feels that they're worth that car. That's a big difference. If you just can use them for something. When you own them, you can actually exchange them for other things. But they also have the financial opportunity. So back at the beginning, the opportunities, financial, holding them buy low, create low, buy high. Some of them are holding them to the end. Some people are just going to keep acquiring them at whatever price they are and hold them until it hits 21 million to see what happens. Some of them are in there. But in the meantime, I can say, well, Peter has this nice Lexus that he has with like dent in the back that he wants to get rid of, and he'll take 3 Bitcoins for it. It's a big difference in other things. Yes, sir.
The exchanges are making.
Yep. Right. So you have to convert it to currency. They're going to take a cut to get it from Bitcoin to real currencies. And of course, the exchange then gets the Bitcoins, and then they'll do whatever they want with it. So yes, good point. Thank you. Yes.
They're very expensive because these miners think it's a very expensive thing. They have thousands of servers. There was an article on the other day on the TV. I don't know if you were aware of the one, that the center for all this is somewhere, a little village out in Washington State, next to Grand Coulee Dam, because that's the cheapest electric that you could get for the servers. They have huge blocks and thousands of servers to mine.
That'll be a good video to hook up. I have one for us in a minute or two.
This was just on all the news programs. One went out there and they had pictures of it. And what is this? Oshkosh, Washington, is the center for this miners now.
The miners are what they're doing is validating transactions and adding them to the ledger, which we call the blockchain. That's the job they're doing. Their reward is some fraction of a Bitcoin, depending on what the block is involved and how many are competing. There's a whole marketplace in there.
It's huge numbers and a lot of power.
And in the beginning, you could set one of these up on one little computer running Ubuntu. Ubuntu guys over there. and maybe use a little computer in your office and try to compete, now it might be very hard to actually ever win as a miner. Miners compete for this. So we have these farms. We'll get to that in a minute. There was a question over here.
Well, you're getting to it.
Yeah.
I want to know who determines, or how do the miners determine how much they pay themselves?
I think it's written in the protocol. Now we're getting down to the protocol.
Will you get to that?
I don't know if I have the specifics. No, I don't have.
Phishing attempts, credit
Let's take a
card
look at some
fraud,
of these,
and the massive
we're a little
wholesale
off the track.
shoplifting of your own
This
personal
brings
information
us back
happening
on.
nearly every time you
Oh, this
visit a
is funny.
website. Enter blockchain, the mystical,
I
magical
can't-
solution to
I
all
can't
of these
scroll back to
problems
the
and more.
beginning.
Here's how it works and the problems it solves. Blockchain is the answer. The
There.
internet is cool, but it's
I
also
think these guys
completely
did the
broken.
best job.
Mass
Like-
data breaches, phishing attempts, credit card fraud, and the massive wholesale shoplifting of your own personal information happening nearly every time you visit a website. Enter blockchain, the mystical, magical solution to all of these problems and more. Here's how it works and the problems it solves. Blockchain is the answer to a question we've been asking since the dawn of the internet. How can we trust what happens online? How do we control the data we put online? In simple terms, blockchain is a distributed database that maintains a list of records. These records are called blocks. Each block contains the history of every block that came before it, down to the second it was edited. In effect, chaining those blocks together. Hence, blockchain. The other thing you need to know is that this whole operation is end-to-end encrypted. Every transaction is linked to a unique cryptographic signature that's easy to verify and nearly impossible to falsify, because blockchain is maintained by a scalable network of computers, often called nodes worldwide, which are in composite referred to as a blockchain network.
It's a network of computers that maintain this file, right, which is an append-only log of data. And the file itself isn't really interesting, but what's interesting is that you have all of these computers around the world that are coordinating with one another to make updates to the file in a lockstep fashion.
Blockstack is a startup using the blockchain to build a new, decentralized version of the internet where users control their apps, their data, and their digital identity with no third parties in the middle.
It's similar to the fossil record in that you can dig down into the earth in any area of the world and you'll see that the same layers occur in the Earth's crust, right? The same thing happens with the blockchain where you can go back, any individual computer can go back into their own file that they have locally, and it'll be identical to everyone else's file. This is one thing that we haven't really had before. We haven't had a piece of data that was synchronized in a trustless way amongst an entire network of computers.
And that's the important distinction here. The fact that anything that happens only happens with total consensus across the distributed network. And that data is stored everywhere at once. That's also why you should trust blockchain, because blockchain gives you proof. Think about a basic digital transaction where Alice is sending Bill $25. To trust that exchange, what do you need? Alice needs to verify that her money went to Bill. Bill needs to receive that money from Alice. And the bank needs to log that Alice is $25 poorer and Bill is $25 richer. Blockchain does this without a bank or third-party service in the middle, using what's called distributed trustless consensus to prove that transaction is valid. In this case, trustless means the opposite of what it sounds like. Because of proof of work, it means no trust is required. Alice and Bill can both see their whole transaction on the blockchain exactly as it occurred. Blockchain's decentralized network and immutable ledger has universal potential. Companies are already using it for everything from banking and identity to tracking assets all over the world. One of those companies is IBM.
So blockchain is all about trust, ensuring that there's transparency, traceability, auditability, and immutability of those transactions. In particular, we're working with Walmart around food safety. The solution that we're working on with them is looking to increase the transparency and traceability of the food supply chain. And this really provides an opportunity to accelerate the time in which an outbreak may occur from days and weeks down to seconds. This solution has hopes of actually eliminating an estimated 30% of food waste across the food supply chain.
Another company IBM is working with is Everledger, a startup using blockchain to track and reduce fraud in the global diamond industry.
An example of an asset here is the diamond. How can you track and trace the history of that diamond, whether it be the cut, the clarity, the cost, who owns the diamond itself? You actually can have that validation or verification of where the diamond came from so that you can determine that it is from a conflict-free zone.
One of the coolest things that blockchain can be used for in the future, and this is the one that really blows people's minds, is a decentralized internet. Cue Silicon Valley joke. But seriously, same idea, better execution. A new internet that runs decentralized versions of all the apps we use today, and where you can do a whole lot more. So imagine if all the most essential services you use today, things like Amazon, Venmo, Uber, and Facebook, were protocols, open source frameworks, instead of being owned and operated by a singular corporate entity.
You can think about an Uber, right, that's decentralized. You no longer have those 20 to 30% cuts right in the middle. It also means that you have a high level of competition. So imagine if Uber and Lyft and Juno were all on the same network and were competing for those fees, right? So think about, you have Facebook, right? Maybe you don't like the fact that you have tons of advertisements in your feed, or that Facebook subjects you to what advertisers are paying to go viral, right? The fact is, if you give users freedom and you give developers freedom, you have a lot more choice, you have a lot better products that actually emerge, right? A lot more competition, a lot more experimentation. You have much lower prices, more actual economic growth, and more jobs that are created as a result.
So that's blockchain in a nutshell. Hopefully now you have some idea of why it's equally important, exciting, and really difficult to explain.
So the purpose of that was to broaden your minds, just to understand that you keep thinking about Bitcoin and blockchain is really something separate, and there's literally thousands of entrepreneurial projects trying to solve problems that some of us actually don't have. Like, we don't like Facebook the way it works. We'd like to see it replaced with something else, or how social media works, or how the internet works, or how they keep health records, or whatever. So they're all looking at it. We're going to stick with the money side of it most of the next couple of slides, but we're getting close on the end of time. But this kind of gives you a picture of it. I think the Financial Post blockchain explained. Let me just check ahead. How does it work? As another example, let's see, impact of the blockchain. Let's use our time and, oops, I didn't want to go there. They had
Meet Wallabot DIY.
The link was bigger than the
This device
slide.
shows you an exact image of what's behind your wall.
Let's just go ahead to mining, because there's a lot of interest in mining. So we'll move ahead to that. But the blockchain is really what's going to keep changing things that we currently do. And it's the technology, the software, there are courses, there are seminars, there's books being written. I mean, it's endless right now on how to get in there. So people are learning the programming languages, learning more about cryptography. Let's see, there's a way to do this. But I can't see it. Let me just give you a little taste of the mining. Like I said, I might have had more slides than I needed, but all this stuff is relevant. Okay, so this is the mining. So it has to do with the blockchain. Obviously, the mining is adding another entry onto the ledger, which is called a block. And in that ledger could be representations of some kind of transaction. Money is pretty easy for most of us, but let's say the transaction could be some kind of a file. It's the official file that explains anything. So the official file that explains anything, there's only one written. Everybody has their notes in it. We can encrypt that file, creating an encrypted key for the file, so that the file has actually been encrypted in this. So anytime we want to, we can take the file and see if it is that key. Then we can take the key and start transferring it in the blockchain. So when somebody actually picks up that particular transaction, they have the key, and you say, here's the original file, here's the actual file about anything. And they say, okay, let me see if I can decrypt it with this. Uh-oh, it's not the right one. So we can actually send an encrypted version of a lot of things down the blockchain, like medical records and so on. So it's really kind of bigger than you can think of. But anyway, let's look at the mining. So in any case, mining is involved. So all those coins and currencies and so on that you see, some of them are dedicated to other purposes. Like Ethereum is dedicated to the concept of a smart contract. That's another word you should write down and keep track of. So a smart contract actually is software that's part of the blockchain that will be able to know when the transaction is completed, like selling a house or something. So once the smart contract as it ends, everybody starts doing their job, it figures out whether the transaction's ready to go. Interesting stuff. But anyway, in any case, there's the protocol for that particular currency, or we call it a currency for a cryptocurrency, will explain exactly what the miner gets and how the miner works. But this process of mining is the same. So let's look at Bitcoin mining, because that would be enough.
What is Bitcoin mining? Bitcoin operates as a peer-to-peer network. This means that everyone who uses Bitcoin is a tiny fraction of the bank of Bitcoin. But where do Bitcoins come from? With paper money, a government decides when to print and distribute money. Bitcoin doesn't have a central government. With Bitcoin, miners use special software to solve math problems and are issued a certain number of Bitcoins in exchange. This provides a smart way to issue the currency and also creates an incentive for more people to mine. And since miners are required to approve Bitcoin transactions, more miners means a more secure network. The Bitcoin network automatically changes the difficulty of the math problems, depending on how fast they're being solved. In the early days, Bitcoin miners solved these math problems with the processors in their computers. Soon, miners discovered that graphics cards used for gaming were much better suited to this kind of math. Graphics cards are faster, but they use more electricity and generate a lot of heat. The first commercial Bitcoin mining products included chips that were reprogrammed for mining Bitcoin. These chips were faster, but still power-hungry. ASIC, or Application-Specific Integrated Circuit chips, are designed specifically for Bitcoin mining. ASIC technology has made Bitcoin mining even faster while using less power. As the popularity of Bitcoin increases, more miners join the network, making it more difficult for individuals to solve the math problems. To overcome this, miners have developed a way to work together in pools. Pools of miners find solutions faster than their individual members, and each miner is rewarded proportionate to the amount of work he or she provides. Mining is an important and integral part of Bitcoin that ensures fairness while keeping the Bitcoin network stable, safe, and secure. For more information about Bitcoin mining, visit bitcoinmining.com.
So the math problem can be 2 plus 2. First miner to solve that problem gets whatever the currency gives them as a solution. But if it was always 3 plus 2 or 4 plus 4, you can see that we're never going to get anywhere. So the software, the protocol itself, creates very complicated math problems that obviously the computer has to generate. And I don't know what those problems are specifically, but they're cryptographic problems, and they're pretty deep. We'll at some point see that. Let's see what this one is. Bitcoinmining.com. It's got to be a website. So we have websites and a whole ecosystem around this Bitcoin mining. That's actually where this video came from. So here you go. You've got hardware right here. Now there's a whole hardware industry involved. Remember one of the opportunities I mentioned? Marketing and selling hardware, or even manufacturing and making it. These are some of the prices. Now there's units that go up to $7,000 or $8,000 in here too, but not in this page. All right. So anyway, there's an ecosystem. That's the only reason for that slide. All right, let's drill down a little bit. Okay, I think you got all this. All right. Work gets harder as they go along. I have the text version of that video. And apparently I died. Okay, you're looking at a little mining operation going on here. Do it yourself in the spare room of the house. So from one computer, we've got all these special, what was it, ASIC drives. So, which one of these should we pick? There's a guide over there. It's okay, so let's go with the video you saw about the mining farm, right? No, I think that one over in the corner is a mining farm that somebody visited. And these are out in China,
My name
Russia,
is Pavel Kuznetsov, and we are on my first mining farm.
So I don't know who this particular guy is, but it's a pretty fast case. I didn't see the whole thing, just the point mining farm.
My investment in this farm is now about $300,000. As you can hear, I have to talk really loud because it's very noisy here. There's heat, and I almost have to scream in order to help you hear me. This is why I offer you to forget all these problems and start a business together. This farm will pay off in 10 months, bringing me the $300,000 I invested. If we purchase new equipment, we would solve the noise problem, decrease the heat release, and...
Sorry.
I was screaming it.
So here at Iceland and I'm getting ready to check out the mines at Genesis Mining. So I'm quite excited, and we're going to go to a secret location. I have no idea what that location is. I hope I'm safe. If not, this might be my final video. So I'm here at a secret location in Iceland, and here is Mia.
Hey guys.
So Mia, what do you do?
Well, I'm working for Genesis Mining since pretty much the beginning. Marco asked me, hey Mia, I have this cool thing being planned, and have you heard of Bitcoin? And he just told me about the concept and what's coming and his vision, and I was just immediately hyped, and yeah, so pretty much beginning on and working for Genesis.
Wow, that's cool how you found out about Bitcoin very early as well, I think.
Yeah, pretty early, but that time, I was still a student, so I just didn't, I just didn't have the time, and I got it that it was super cool, but I was just a broke student. So
right.
I had $500 even to put into Bitcoin.
That's too bad, otherwise it'd be a millionaire by now.
Exactly.
So would I if I didn't sell so early. And this is one of many mines, right? I think you guys can't disclose any locations of other mines.
We have a facility pretty much on every continent at this point, and I cannot really tell a lot, but we are building 2 really large ones on other continents right now again. So we're expanding again, and I'm super hyped for it, and I cannot wait to say some more about it. But it's like everything is super secret at the moment. So
let's take a look.
Yeah, let's go.
Let's go. So we're here, and it's starting to get loud already.
So are you ready?
I'm ready. I'm ready. Oh my god. And basically, I'm the screaming here. There's no way we can even talk to each other. That is super loud. They have so many graphics cards. There's rows of them. And rows. And you can see that for the whole facility. They have these numbers, numbering everything up. When I started mining, I was doing this by myself. And I didn't know you can put there's six GPUs and one really powerful PSU to do it. It's a lot of power actually being drawn here. And the reason why it's in Iceland is because the electricity is cheap here. And it's pretty insane. It's pretty loud. You can also feel the heat. There's heat coming from here, from all the GPUs.
Let's check out the gold eye.
Pretty good, it's moving pretty good.
So we have the other side.
And
what are these things?
These are filters. They're filtering the air so that because the outside air is being pulled through this eye, and the air obviously has to be filtered, otherwise the dust would settle on the hardware, which would cause them to even be more hot, and that's why it needs to be filtered.
Yeah, I have a computer, and inside is full of cobwebs and everything. It's like I feel it. You can feel the wind blowing, and it's cold air. That's why she's in a jacket. I'm super excited, so I'm still in a t-shirt.
Yeah, there are some chairs because sometimes, the maintenance guys have to come in here and, check some things, and then they, it's really uncomfortable to do it like this.
It's freaking windy in here. Alright, let's go. So it looks exactly the same.
Almost, except for that it's a bit louder here. It's okay.
These giant planes up here that are super loud. And it's like a jet engine, pretty much. This is to the sky, right? So that's open to the air. So what happens when it rains?
Nothing actually. It remains open because the thing is, it's so strong.
We're going to cut it. I think you got the point.
Snow falls on
you got the point. So
Very helpful.
the point is that there's a big investment going on to be able to validate a transaction on the blockchain. It's basically what they're all doing, and they get some kind of a reward, which there's a question exactly what percentage of the new in the currency basis is in there. These are links like comparing different hardwares. I was just going to see what the different names and numbers are. We're not going to go there. There's somebody has set one up, and they go through the steps of setting it up. They set up a 6 GPU for the Ethereum coin, and so on. So and there's a guide on how to set it up and all that. I just put them together. I knew we weren't going to get that deep into it, but there's, I think, this is mining software. So Bruce, you want to get CG Miner. These are all free. The hardware is not free. The electricity is not free. But, and you go to Bitcoin mining software. Oh, what's the name of that? Let's see. That's the. Here's a place to go for all this. Oh, well. It's called Buy Bitcoin Worldwide. Again, I'll put this up so you can get to these links that I found. The thing with the links, look for dates. Like that's June 27, 2017. That's pretty old, but good enough. You know, you get closer to January, the better off you are on a lot of these things, is my opinion. But there's some good old stuff on there. So you get this different software you can buy. I seen a guy did a video, don't ever do it on the Mac because probably the heat problem. Mac's cooled by the metal partially. You know, so. There's calculators to calculate your electricity and cost. So like, for example, there's a calculator, but coming to the question of electricity, you want to do this in the United States, where should you do it? What was the state they were in?
Washington State, right, Cooley Dam.
Wisconsin has the cheapest.
All right, I don't know the date of this particular graph, but let's see, is New Jersey in there somewhere? Hard to see New Jersey in there. New Jersey, it's $5,011 to mine 1 Bitcoin based on the average electricity rate. So out in Nevada and Utah, I think in Nevada and some of those places where McAfee's been building farms, he has his farms out there. You just saw a farm in Sweden, but there are farms here by different people, and they're all trying to get some fraction to add to get the next Bitcoin, or you get a fraction of Bitcoin to add the next block. So they're all investing in them for different reasons. And electricity consumption, well, anyway, this is an article that kind of goes into all the comparisons. But we are consuming tons of electricity for this new technology. It's a big issue.
Lots of coal.
Right, so you can run some of these calculators. Let's see if there's anything else. Mining pools. BitClub is a pool you can join. Again, we click through. Mining hash flare is one. Just take a look at the website so you get an idea what it's about. So when you're going to do mining, you can join a pool, and you get involved with the cost of that pool. So it's a club. You join it. You give them your debit card, and there's somehow it all works. Okay. Again, we just want to give you the overview today because, like I said, somebody wants to investigate mining pools. All right, so we're not going to do a lot on public and private keys, how it works, but I had slides for it. But there is a good video in here.
256.
I've got a slide. I've got a slide left. So it's based on a cryptography algorithm called SHA-256, and I think this gives you the picture of the kinds of things that miners might have to solve just in terms of how the cryptography works. So just to get a picture of what math is about, I think that one video out there might be worth watching. Let me just look ahead. You know, we can always learn about private keys in another meeting. How secure is it? Maybe that's the video.
There's always unforeseen consequences.
All right, let's do this one, and then we'll kind of wrap it up. We can do another one on the blockchain, another presentation sometime during the year. Oh, this is just a link. So this is just SHA-256. It happens to be the cryptographic function software that creates the secure codes. That's your keys, your private key, and so on. It's just a description of it. And that's not the video. I'll do this one. So this must be the video over here. Oh, actually, let's just do this slide real quick. So there's your private key that gets generated. It can actually be in some different formats, but that's what it looks like. That's the private key. And it's 256-bit number if you don't understand bits. Then from that, a public key is created. The private key will be used to encrypt the amount of money that you're going to send, and then send along with the public key onto the receiver who's going to receive that message. And there's what a public key could look like. It's a little more complicated. It's in two parts, but they're big numbers. And then they synthesize it down to the smaller thing, but it's still a public key. All right, so the video is right there. I don't worry about it. I thought this was kind of a good little video. So it's all based on cryptography and believing in math, and this is a glimpse into the math of the world.
I made two references to situations where, in order to break a given piece of security, you would have to guess a specific string of 256 bits. One of these was in the context of digital signatures, and the other in the context of a cryptographic hash function. For example, if you want to find a message whose SHA-256 hash is some specific string of 256 bits, you have no better method than to just guess and check random messages.
Guessing the number 9,
And
10,
this would require,
11,
on
12,
average,
guessing.
2 to the 256 guesses. Now, this is a number so far removed from anything that we ever deal with that it can be hard to appreciate its size. But let's give it a try. 2 to the 256 is the same as 2 to the 32, multiplied by itself 8 times. Now, what's nice about that split is that 2 to the 32 is 4 billion, which is at least a number we can think about, right? It's the kind of thing you might see in a headline. So all we need to do is appreciate what multiplying 4 billion times itself 8 successive times really feels like. As many of you know, the GPU on your computer can let you run a whole bunch of computations in parallel, incredibly quickly. So if you were to specially program a GPU to run a cryptographic hash function over and over, a really good one might be able to do a little less than 1 billion hashes per second. And let's say that you just take a bunch of those and cram your computer full of extra GPUs so that your computer can run 4 billion hashes per second. So the first 4 billion here is going to represent the number of hashes per second per computer. Now, picture 4 billion of these GPU-packed computers. For comparison, even though Google does not at all make their number of servers public, estimates have it somewhere in the single-digit millions. In reality, most of those servers are going to be much less powerful than our imagined GPU-packed machine. But let's say that Google replaced all of its millions of servers with a machine like this, then 4 billion machines would mean about 1,000 copies of this souped-up Google. Let's call that 1 kilogoogle worth of computing power. There's about 7.3 billion people on Earth. So next, imagine giving a little over half of every individual on Earth their own personal kilogoogle. Now, imagine 4 billion copies of this Earth. For comparison, the Milky Way has somewhere between 100 and 400 billion stars. We don't really know, but the estimates tend to be in that range. So this would be akin to a full 1% of every star in the galaxy having a copy of Earth, where half the people on that Earth have their own personal kilogoogle. Next, try to imagine 4 billion copies of the Milky Way. And we're going to call this your gigagalactic supercomputer, running about 2 to the 160 guesses every second. Now, 4 billion seconds, that's about 126.8 years. 4 billion of those, well, that's 507 billion years, which is about 37 times the age of the universe. So even if you were to have your GPU-packed kilogoogle per person multiplanetary gigagalactic computer guessing numbers for 37 times the age of the universe, it would still only have a 1 in 4 billion chance of finding the correct guess. By the way, the state of Bitcoin hashing these days is that all of the miners put together guess and check at a rate of about 5 billion hashes per second. That corresponds to 1/3 of what I just described as a kilogoogle. This is not because there are actually billions of GPU-packed machines out there, but because miners actually use something that's about 1,000 times better than a GPU, application-specific integrated circuits. These are pieces of hardware specifically designed for Bitcoin mining, for running a bunch of SHA-256 hashes, and nothing else. Turns out, there's a lot of efficiency gains to be had when you throw out the need for general computation and design your integrated circuits for one and only one task. Also, on the topic of large powers of 2 that I personally find it hard to get my mind around, this channel recently surpassed 2 to the 18th subscribers. And to engage a little more with some sub-portion of those 2 to the 18 people, I'm going to do a Q&A session. I've left a link in the description to a Reddit thread where you can post questions and upvote the ones that you want to hear answers to. And probably in the next...
All right, so I'm going to wrap it up, but it was basically the miner is going to actually create a identification for each of the blocks. And that's how secure those numbers are, how secure the private keys that you generate, the public keys. That's how long it would take for somebody to find out the possibilities. So the answer is yes, they're not secure. You can actually solve for them. You can actually do that, but you can see that you're going to be around to the end of the universe doing it. That's in there. So that's the current key. I mean, it's a little bit abstract to pick up, but it gives you a little more confidence in that. Everybody's believing in the cryptocurrency, the ability to use the math so that it's secure and no one can actually change it or break it. Whatever's put onto that blockchain is completely unbreakable. Obviously, if you give somebody your private key, you broke it yourself, but they can't really guess it from, I mean, that would be hard to guess it. They have to keep trying. Like if your number was number 6, they might guess it, but you don't have such a number. Generally, when you go to create a private key, you put in a bunch of seeding values in a little field. And the more you put in, the more likely your private key is going to be harder to break. So most of them actually have you type some things in up there, and then it generates that private key for you based on some random inputs would be said. You know, you can type in A, B, C, D, but I wouldn't suggest that. And then it generates this kind of crazy key. Like I generated for websites, like somebody goes to websites that want to change your password, I got to send them an encrypted, what I call a token, back to their email. I use a software program that generates a random number, then I encrypt the random number, and then using this, and it's not a lot of lines of code, it's really simple, 2 lines of code, and then I put that onto the tail end of the URL, and I send it, and you get these all the time. It says, please validate your subscription to our service, and you click on it. Usually at the end, there's this long little string of numbers. That's a one-time token key that they generate. Goes back, looks it up, see if it's in the database, and it's there, then they say, okay, you're now in. So I thought that gave you a nice picture. Now, to summarize it is that probably everybody was here because it's Bitcoins. So here's the word on the street. Don't invest in them if you can't afford to lose what you put in. But if you want to use them, go right ahead. You might be interested in making some transactions off the grid. You know, you might want to start using them somewhere. I'll leave it open to questions. I was running a little long for a normal meeting, but it seems like everybody's engrossed or fell asleep.
If there's a lot of miners competing for this, and the fastest one wins it, that implies there's a lot of wasted computational power going on.
That's a good question. I have to look that up. Very good question. Yeah. My impression was that you may not win, but the point is that there's let's see, Bitcoin transactions generally will get recorded within 10 minutes, even though they say it's instant. It takes 10 minutes before they end up on the blockchain. Of course, then the blockchain gets updated by everybody's following it. They're listening, their computers are listening for the updates and they're sending out. Let's see. So the problems get more complex, but there may be a queuing in there, I don't know. Good questions. Now, I mean, mining is, I've talked to a couple of my friends who are mining on Facebook, and anything I say, you're wrong. They tell me, oh, you're wrong, you're wrong. So it's a field that's growing really quickly, but I do know people that have a couple of computers that they beefed up, and they're earning $1 or $2 in U.S. currency to $5 in U.S. currency a day. They claim. I don't know how much electricity they're using to do it, but they claim they're making a couple bucks a day. And it's more of an educational experiment to see if they can do it, buy the hardware. It's somewhat hobbyish at that level. Whereas out in Sweden and McAfee and these other people, they're trying to, I don't know, do something big. Keep in mind, those guys are also making their own applications out of blockchain. we didn't get into all the applications, but you got a little taste. People are trying to come up with other solutions for it. Once you do a blockchain application, whoever was the controlling third party is gone. So if you could do a blockchain technology of the post office, we no longer would need it, theoretically. That's how you think of that. If someone could come up with such a solution. That one's not going to happen, but I'm just saying that's kind of the idea. So you can think about any third party that bugs you, go out and solve it, figure out a way to get rid of them. That's the disruption that everybody's kind of worried about, but then on the other hand, you embrace it. How about when you were a box store and they came up with this e-commerce thing? What were you doing? And then a lot of them embraced it. See, so other questions or comments?
How do you tax it? How does the government tax it?
How do you get a sales tax might be an example, right? Is it kind of something simple? They can't. That's the problem. There's a solution?
No. Supposedly, no one really knows, but there's about 16.8 million bitcoins mined.
Yeah, they're getting close to the top number.
16.8 million out of the 21 million.
And once they come up with that 21 million and one, then all these mines are just useless, right?
That's right.
No, they work on the other coins. There's many coins running.
No, but if there's, they'd have to start doing Ethereum or something other than Bitcoin.
Yeah, I think if you get into the mining ether world there, you'll talk about which one maybe we build a mining machine for.
Well, they're verifying transactions, so they'll just be verifying the same 21 million over and over.
No. The thing about the SSH 256 is they're trying to figure out what a new hash is.
Right.
And there's only 21 million of them that can ever be, but they have to just sort of randomly guess until they get each one. But once you come up with the 21st million of them, there are no more to guess. So then what?
Well, there's the hash, and then there's solving a math problem. I don't know.
That's all tied in there.
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of computations they do.
There's a limit on the total number of coins.
But there could be different rules or protocols for the different coins, how different they are. But the software you install is mining software that does it for you. And of course, it's just running a piece of hardware really hard. You know, and the software is you probably go in and say, I'd like to mine. I haven't seen these software programs. Maybe somebody's going to install one and try it.
What is the?
But I'm sure you go in there and say, I'd like to mine this one, I'd like to mine that one, and then
Isn't mining verifying the transaction between you and me?
No.
No,
that's what the nodes do. The distributed network does that. The mines are creating these new hash codes, basically a new coin. So sort of the base of a new chain.
Then there's a limit at the 21 million.
Yeah, because that's what's limited. The number of transactions you can do after that is
Now you get into the Peter Schiff world and the other worlds where I get you in a second. In fact, eventually there's going to be a bubble that bursts. But the answer is it has no intrinsic value except between two people who set a value for it. And you could, like I said, I could again get Peter's card. You might say, well, okay, I'll take a half a Bitcoin, and you might want 10 Bitcoins. He's going to look at all this information on the internet, see that these exchanges are saying it's $11,000 per Bitcoin. He's going to make a decision based on that. These people are thinking that no matter what happens, whether they're buying low or getting Bitcoins high or low by mining, that when we hit that limit that you're talking about, they're going to be in gravy and they're just going to reinvest it in other things in this area. It's a little beyond me, I hate to say it, but it's...
As it costs money to change stocks or money, what is the cost per $10,000 worth of Bitcoin that's transferred to another person? And what is the cost, and where does it come from?
The cost is nothing.
Hmm?
There's no cost.
There has to be a cost
because
you're paying for it.
Study all the coinages. Some of them may have little cost in it, but generally there's no cost.
There has to be a cost. Look at all this energy.
It's distributed. Everybody has a node, and everybody's computer's doing it. So
everybody is paying for it.
Well, there's a cost to humanity, obviously, because we have computers, internets, routers, and it's a whole infrastructure that's being used, and then these CPUs are burning.
You're just saying it's difficult to compute the cost. There is a cost.
But your question is, what's the cost for you to have a Bitcoin? And all you have to do is sell me something, and I'll send one to you. But I don't have one, unfortunately. If I did, it would be 11,000. But if you have something to sell me, let's say something you brought with you today. These shoes, they look pretty nice. What size are they? So you sell me these shoes, so I will send you a 0.000 whatever Bitcoin, and you'll have a Bitcoin for it. What you do with it afterwards, I really don't care. I'm just going to wear your shoes.
Well, then the whole thing comes down to the system, like you're saying. Everybody that has a node has an electric cost. So that's the cost of doing Bitcoins. How many Bitcoins are exchanged per month?
How many BTUs?
And how much is the added electric per
But it's no different
month?
than me buying it off of shoes.com, except I'm going to be paying the credit card transaction fee because it's already built into the shoe price. Right? When I give them the credit card at shoes.com, they're going to say, okay, yeah, you can use Discover
That's just
card.
hiding it. It's there. There is a cost.
But the computer cost is pretty much the same. It's just a request over the internet back and forth.
Okay. There is a cost. We don't have a way to compute it.
The protocol says we're going to create something called coins. The process is called mining, and it involves solving very complicated math problems, which require bigger and bigger CPUs, apparently, GPUs connected together to solve the problem. They get bigger and bigger and to solve, and of course these things run, and they have to do it within 10 seconds.
So that's the cost. The cost of the GPUs and the power and the time. There is a cost
To the miner.
transfer
To the miner. Yeah. The miner pays that cost, and they.
I don't ask who's paying it. It's there.
So there's calculators. I skipped by them because we can spend. But let's say the calculator says so much energy is required to create one Bitcoin. If that energy, let's say, is worth $1,000, hopefully that Bitcoin, when you get done with it, is going to be worth 1,000 today, or you think it's going to be worth more than 1,000 in the future. In other words, it may not be today's price of the Bitcoin. And this is what a lot of miners I've heard say. It might cost me $1,000 to get the Bitcoin, and the Bitcoin may only be worth $250 when I get it. But I'm gambling that, as time goes by, it's going to go up in value. So that's a business decision.
One general insight: it's a very expensive procedure for people to bypass handling their own country's currency. We still, in the United States, how poor it is, it's still the best one in the world. That's why most of these Bitcoins are handled in China or India or someplace that has a very poor currency. And it will be supplanted by another currency that is more effective and needs less calculation to handle. Perhaps something that's linked to, as Venezuela wanted to do it, per gallon of oil or per basket of commodities.
Venezuela is a great place to do mining. The electric's very cheap there.
And I'm told that because there's runaway inflation in Venezuela, there are a lot of people who are buying Bitcoin.
Right, and then they want to stop them. All right, so I just gonna cap it off then, but the point is that this is all brand new, and I hope that the presentation in general kind of opened your eyes to a emerging technology that's going to look like it's going to disrupt it. On the other hand, some people think it's just going to fizzle out from maybe the currency point of view. I'm just going to turn that off. This is probably somebody wondering where I am. All right?
Good job, bud.
Come back next month.
It's got to be one of these.
I got to run.
Wait. You want to save that, right?
Oh, okay. Then I don't know how. I don't want to touch it by mistake.
Oh boy. Good. Yeah, all right. Yeah, the envelopes are in there. I just never got them out. In fact, that's maybe where I put that other receipt. But I'll put it all together. That'll work fine.
It says finished. Down in this corner, it says finish. Can we do that?
Yeah, we just do that. It says add. I guess we could have added those people that wanted to watch, and we didn't do that, so they're probably pissed at us. I don't know if we were supposed to add them or not.